The Horizon Europe Grant Agreement is based on a model grant agreement used across all EU programs under direct management. The specifics unique to the Horizon Europe program are reflected through certain adjustments, most notably using the suitable options parts in the text of the grant agreement and in Annex 5, which includes program-specific rules. In Horizon Europe, you will encounter the following three types of model grant agreements. The versions mainly differ based on forms of funding and the specific requirements of the projects for which they are used. For example, the unit cost version contains several provisions in Annex 5 applicable in Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions and ERA Fellowships projects, particularly addressing the relationship between the beneficiary and the researcher. The general structure of the model grant agreement includes the following parts. It is important to be familiar with the content of Annex 5, which contains many provisions and rules you might otherwise expect in the terms and conditions part of the agreement. For example, if you are looking for IP rules, first you'll come across Article 16. Following that, you have to look into Annex 5 to see whether there are any further details on IP, as indicated also in Article 16.4. You will find nearly 8 pages of additional provisions on IP. The European Commission provides additional guidance in a document called Annotated Grant Agreement. It includes elucidations for most of the rules of the Model Grant Agreement for parts, terms, and condition, and Annex 5, and examples of practical situations for better understanding. Although the AGA is not legally binding, as its text is not part of the signed grant agreement, it serves as official EC guidance and should be one of your primary sources for interpretation of the grant agreement. Most of the provisions of the grant agreement are not subject to negotiation prior to signing. The project's operating terms and conditions are part of the template that applies uniformly to all beneficiaries and cannot be modified. However, a few details may be negotiated. The project description and budget are taken from the project proposal and, in principle, cannot be changed before signing the grant agreement. This is referred to as the no negotiation principle. Permitted exceptions include the correction of obvious errors, adjustments necessary to comply with the program rules, and incorporating changes based on the evaluator's recommendations, especially budget adjustments for lump sum projects. Each beneficiary must submit all necessary data needed for the grant agreement using the IT tool integrated into the EU funding and tender portal, according to the coordinator's instructions. At this stage, each beneficiary's project legal signatory must also sign a declaration through the portal, confirming compliance with the program rules and eligibility for funding. The grant agreement is signed through the portal by the coordinator's project legal signatory in the system and the granting authority. After that, the other beneficiaries, respectively their project legal signatory, join the concluded agreement by signing the accession form of the grant agreement within 30 days. Other project participants, such as affiliated entities and associated partners, are not parties to the grant agreement. The Financial Regulation and Horizon Europe Regulation require that the grant agreement is concluded within 8 months from the call deadlines. Since the proposal evaluation must be completed within 5 months after the call deadline, this generally leaves 3 months for grant preparation, beginning when the applicant receives the invitation letter to grant preparation together with the evaluation summary report. The deadline will be specified in the letter. If the deadlines are not respected, the grant preparation might be terminated. Therefore, the applicant should act promptly and always inform the project officer of any difficulties or delays. When considering project changes, these typically fall into 3 categories based on their impact on the grant agreement. Like any contract, the grant agreement can be modified through formal amendments. Article 39 of the Model Grant Agreement outlines the rules for implementing these changes. which can be initiated by either the beneficiaries or the granting authority. For a complete list of changes requiring the amendment of the grant agreement, refer to the European Commission's Amendment Guide, which also provides guidance on the specific requirements and supporting documents needed for each type of amendment. Common amendments include the following changes in the consortium composition and the following changes to the project and its implementation. Budget changes are very common, and many of them can be made without amending the grant agreement, thanks to the budget flexibility outlined in Article 5.5 of the grant agreement, which generally allows budget shifts between beneficiaries and budget categories without an amendment. However, there are a few exceptions, such as changes to the subcontracting budget category. As mentioned above, the general rules of the model grant agreement cannot be negotiated, so they cannot be changed through an amendment either. Additionally, changes that would violate the principle of equal treatment for applicants are prohibited. Therefore, it is not possible to make changes that would have affected the project's selection for funding if they had been included in the original project proposal, such as changes in the consortium composition that would lead to non-compliance with minimum participation conditions.